Welcome back to the channel where we dive into Canadian history, economics, politics, and real estate. I'm Ian Struker with the Remax Golfing team, and today we're exploring a pivotal moment in Canada's past, the role of women in the workforce during World War II. From boosting economic productivity to reshaping Ontario's real estate landscape, women's contributions were nothing short of transformative. Let's get started. When World War II began in 1939, Canada's economy shifted into overdrive. With millions of men enlisting, industries faced severe labor shortages. The solution? Women stepped up in unprecedented numbers. By 1944, over 1.2 million Canadian women were working outside the home. That's double the number from 1939. In Ontario, the heart of Canada's industrial war effort, women poured into factories, shipyards, and even farms. They weren't just filling the gaps, they were driving production. According to the Imperial Munitions Board, about 261,000 women worked in war good productions by 1943, making up nearly 50% of employees in some gun plants and a majority in munition inspection. This was a seismic shift. Women took on roles traditionally reserved for men: welding, riveting, assembling aircraft. Victory Aircraft in Malton, Ontario was a prime example, producing over 16,400 planes, with women making up a significant chunk of the workforce. But this wasn't just about patriotism, it was about economics. Women's labor helped Canada produce over $9.5 billion worth of war materials, equivalent to roughly $100 billion today. Talking further about money, women's work was critical, but their wages told a different story. In Ontario's munitions factories, women earned 50 to 80% of what men made for similar roles. For example, a woman welder might earn 60 cents per hour, while her male counterpart earned $1. This gap persisted, despite women proving their productivity. In fact, studies from the time showed women often matched or exceeded men's output in precision tasks like munitions inspections. Their efficiency helped Canada's economy churn out war goods and at a staggering pace, contributing to a GDP boost that laid the foundations for a post-war prosperity. But this wage gap wasn't just about fairness, it reflected deeper societal norms. Many employers and unions saw women's work as temporary, a stopgap until men returned. Trade unions, while protective of workers' rights, often resisted equal pay, fearing it would undercut men's wages post-war. Yet, women's contributions were undeniable. Their labor in Ontario's factories and beyond helped Canada punch above its weight, supplying the Allies with everything from tanks to aircraft. Productivity soared, but it came at a cost. Women worked long shifts, often 10 to 12 hours, under grueling conditions. Factories were noisy, hazardous, and physically demanding. Still, their work ethic and adaptability kept Canada's war machine running, proving women were not just capable, but essential to the economy. The war didn't just change workplaces, it reshaped labor itself. Women moved from traditional roles like domestic service and clerical work into heavy industry. In Ontario, the Canadian Women's Army Corps and Women's Royal Canadian Naval Service trained women as mechanics, drivers, and code breakers. These labor shifts challenged gender norms, but not without pushback. Some worried women would lose their femininity or disrupt family structures, yet women persisted, balancing factory work with domestic responsibilities. This wasn't just a temporary shift. The war laid the groundwork for long-term change. By 1944, women made up 43% of Canada's labor force. While many were pushed out of industrial jobs post-war, especially married women who faced legislation barring them from government jobs, the patterns of women working outside the home were set. By the 1960s, married women made up a third of the labor force, a trend that started in these war years. But not all women experienced these shifts equally. Indigenous women faced barriers due to institutional racism, and Japanese Canadian women were forcibly relocated and classified as enemy aliens, limiting their opportunities. The wartime narrative is complex, shaped by race, class, and geography. Now let's connect this to real estate. The influx of women into urban workforces created a housing crisis, or at least helped with it. Factories in Ontario, like those in Toronto and Malton, drew workers from rural areas. But there weren't enough homes. The Canadian government stepped in with Wartime Housing Limited, building temporary accommodation for workers. Developers like Rushmore Heights near Prince Rupert catered to married workers. The single female workers often lived in dormitories or shared rentals. Now, these weren't luxury homes. Wartime housing was basic, small, prefabricated units designed for function, not comfort. In Ontario, areas around industrial hubs like Hamilton and Toronto saw rapid construction to house female workers. For example, women at General Steelwares in Toronto, making soldiers' helmets, often lived in nearby company dorms or converted boarding houses. These temporary solutions were a lifeline, but they also highlighted the strain on urban infrastructure. This housing boom had lasting impacts. Post-war, many temporary units were repurposed or replaced with permanent suburbs, shaping Ontario's real estate landscape. The war showed that rapid urbanization required innovative housing solutions, a lesson that resonates in today's market, where affordability remains a challenge. Then, when the war ended, women were expected to return to domestic life. Many did, but the seeds of change were planted. The economic contribution of women during World War II proved their value in the workforce, paving the way for the women's movement of the 1960s. In Ontario, the real estate legacy of wartime housing influenced urban planning, while the wage gap, while still present, began to narrow over decades, dropping from 59% of men's earnings in 1961 to 87% by 2022. Women's work in World War II wasn't just about winning a war. It was about rewriting Canada's economic and social story. Their productivity fueled growth, their labor shifts broke barriers, and their housing needs reshaped our cities. As a real estate agent, I see how history informs today's market. We're still grappling with housing shortages and affordability, but the resilience of those wartime women inspires us to find a solution. Thanks for joining me on this journey through Canada's World War II history. If you enjoyed this deep dive, hit the like button, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Until next time, I'm Ian Strucker with the RE/MAX Golfi team, helping you find your place in history. See you again soon.